You know, I think one of the things that we find as we talk with startups around the world is that basic transparency and availability of information is a huge deal, and so it gets to the points that you just made there. I think one of the really neat things about the group that has been assembled on this stage this morning is that there's a mix of government, corporation, and startup voices here, and so I wanted to turn to the corporate voices next. Maybe start with Ken Asada to my far left, who is the investment director with Intel Capital based in Japan. So Ken, could you provide some tips from your expertise about investing in global startups for the group?
Okay, hear me? Okay. Could you show my presentation slide? Okay, next slide, please. So I'd like to share my first-hand experience of investing and supporting global startups. So next slide, please. So we invested in a company, you can see here, named Gengo in 2012, 3 years ago. And this company is one of the few Japan-based startups that operates globally. So I'd like to share some tips and hints and day-to-day activity that I learned by interacting with founders of this company. So let me briefly introduce the company. The company was founded by two non-Japanese founders, Matthew Romaine. Actually, he is half Japanese and half US. And Robert Lane from Australia. And they had headquarters in Tokyo and San Mateo in California. And they hire 40 members from 14 different countries. And their business is to provide online translation service. And the service, translation service itself is done by 60,000 translators in 138 countries. So this is global, very global. And this is only, you can only available this type of business model in this digital economy. And customers base is also global. As you can see familiar names on the screen. And investors are from 6 countries. They got a seed investment from 500 startups from US, and Series A by Atomico from UK, and Series B by us, Intel, from US. And recently they closed the Series C round, which was led by Recruit from Japan. So this is, yes, so from here, I'd like to share some tips for building up the foundation for global startups. So the first point is very clear and simple. So your business model or technology has to have a potential to compete in a global setting. And also you need to have a good management team that is capable enough to operate global business effectively. So we always see these points when we consider investment at the investment committee. And actually Gengo satisfied these 2 points. And the next is you must have a right investor for you, for your company. And I think this is the most important things you should consider. And if you have a vision of going global, I would recommend you make an extra effort and research to find the investors who can share same philosophy and vision of your company. And also, investor network is also important. And I would like to hear from Tom about this later. But as is, in many cases, startup founders' personal business network is limited when a company goes to global. So you must find investors with good global network. Then they will help you find business partner, potential customers, and future investors for your additional funding round. And the third point is, once you set up the local overseas office, first thing you need to do is to hire a good talent from local market. So in Gengo case, they set up a US office after the foundation of the company in Japan. And for example, both Gengo founders are native English speakers. And one founder, current CEO, Matthew Romaine, was raised in US and graduated from university in US. But they didn't have experience of working in the States, so they didn't have business network in the States. So initially they had a very difficult time to reach a good candidate pool when they hire people in the US. And they had time, and they also had a hard time to find and select the best people from that pool. So, but 500 startups helped them a lot when they set up the US office. And having 500 startups in the investor list led to Series A by Atomico. And Atomico also introduced the company to us, and we invested. So it's like a network chain by the investor. And the last point you should consider is culture. So I'll talk about two culture things. So the first one is, after you set up the headquarters in your home country and set up local overseas office in somewhere, founders should pay close attention to foster and maintain a unique corporate culture in your company across the geography. So this is very important things, and it will actually bear some additional cost to communicate with overseas offices. But the company founders and also investors should understand this is a necessary cost to operate effective global operations. And the last is founders, and especially the management in headquarters, should understand the difference of the business culture by country. So for example, in Japan, B2B sales cycle is relatively long. It's very long. And it's not rare it takes 1 year to convince customer to buy your product or service. And customers prefers face-to-face meeting rather than phone call or video conference. And relationship does matter. So it may seem inefficient from outside, but once it's done, once relationship is built, the relationship becomes very, how do I say, very stable, very sticky, and lasting one. So then you can expect repeat orders from those customers for a long time. So management and founders in headquarters should take those differences into consideration when making business judgment. So I think, yes, I know there are a lot of things to consider when our startups goes to global, but the points I mentioned now is what I think is important from my experience.
Thank you very much, Ken.